Today I'm going to talk about a place called Lodebar, and I've been having trouble pronouncing Jonathan's son's name, but I hope I don't butcher it too bad. And 2 Samuel chapter 9, starting in verse 1. And David said, Is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake? And there was the house of Saul a servant, whose name was Ziba. And when they had called him unto David, the king said unto him, Art thou Ziba? And he said, Thy servant is he. The king said, Is there not yet any of the house of Saul, that I may show the kindness of Elohim unto him? And Ziba said unto the king, Jonathan has yet a son, which is lame on his feet. And the king said unto him, Where is he? Ziba said unto the king, Behold, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, in Lodebar. Then King David sent and fetched him out of the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, from Lodebar. Now when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, was come unto David, he fell on his face and did reverence. And David said to Mephibosheth, and he answered, Behold thy servant. David said unto him, Fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan thy father's sake, and will restore thee all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually. And he bowed himself and said, What is thy servant, that thou should look upon such a dead dog as I am? And then the king called to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said unto him, I have given unto thy master's son all that pertains to Saul and to all his house. Thou therefore and thy sons and thy servants shall till the land for him, and thou shalt bring in the fruits, that thy master's son may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth, thy master's son, shall eat bread always at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then said Ziba unto the king, According to all that my lord the king has commanded his servant, so shall thy servant do. As for Mephibosheth, said the king, he shall eat at my table as one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth had a young son, whose name was Micah. And all that dwelt in the house of Ziba were servants unto Mephibosheth. So Mephibosheth dwelt in Jerusalem, for he did eat continually at the king's table, and was lame on both his feet. Many people live in a state of loneliness. People who are by themselves, out of the mainstream of society, with no social activities or friendships outside of themselves. There are a great many others who live right in the middle of life's hustle and bustle that find themselves alone, dislocated, misunderstood, both physically and psychologically. People have been and will be alone. From the thousands of orphans to the megastars surrounded by thousands, from the homeless to the struggling single mother, people are alone. People are distressed or depressed or forgotten. They're alone. Now, a place called Lodebar was such a place. Its very meaning is not having or pastureless. It was a town full of forgotten people, including Mephibosheth, son of David's best friend, Jonathan, who was the son of King Saul. In Lodebar, we would find the lost, the unskilled, the uneducated, cast out from society, those who people would scorn at, those that we would pass by and pay no attention to, those who would be just another statistic on a government report, those who would be some PhD candidate's dissertation of study. A place called Lodebar was full of estranged folks with no family, no jobs, poverty-stricken, barely getting by day to day. The place called Lodebar was full of runaways, street people, all with a story, all with a broken past, such as modern-day LA with overpopulated streets that has been described by some as a million stories in the naked city, likened to modern-day New York with its millions living on the streets, thousands below poverty level, likened to modern-day Miami where thousands are drug addicts, drug dealers, cartel members, likened to modern-day Pittsburgh with its hundreds of homeless, thousands of addicts, thousands of children with no home, murder, crime, disease. Likened to modern-day Washington with its crowded women's shelters, abandoned youth, poor education, low job establishments. Radical problems where everybody has a broken story to tell. Some misfortune to overcome. We live in Lodebar. We know somebody that lives in Lodebar. We walk around, we drive around, and ignore the place called Lodebar. Inhabitants of Lodebar are not there of their own fault. Mephibosheth was not in Lodebar because of himself or something he had done. We are told that he was crippled in both feet. His crippled situation was a result of a debilitating consequence placed upon him in his youth and not by himself or virtue of his birth. He was not born crippled. In 2 Samuel 4, verse 4, tells us that Mephibosheth was under the care of a nurse while his father Jonathan was in battle. And when the word came that Jonathan and Saul were killed, the nurse grabbed Mephibosheth to run, but dropped him, thus injuring both of his feet for life. He was only about 5 years old when this happened, and then had to spend his days being cared for from time to time by somebody else, or living off the handouts of a few in a detestable, forgotten place called Lodebar. It wasn't his fault his father died. It wasn't his fault the nurse dropped him. It wasn't his fault that there was no doctor who could repair his situation. It wasn't his fault. It's not your fault that you were molested as a child. It's not your fault that you were raped, abused verbally or physically. It's not your fault you had no father or no mother. It's not your fault that you had to raise yourself, raise your parents instead of them raising you. It's not your fault you were raised in poverty, on welfare and handouts. It's not your fault no one ever gave you guidance or provided you with a good education, inspired you, poured life into you, built up some confidence in you. It's not your fault. It's not your fault they closed their businesses down or cut back. It's not your fault how you were raised, how you were talked to, how you were prejudiced against. It's not your fault that you have lived or now live in a place called Lodebar. We are always quick to assume that people who are in situations worse than our own have had to do something wrong to get that way. I have heard people say that they don't have enough faith. They have sinned or are being punished by God. No. We have received some unexpected turmoil that at the time there seemed to be no way out and no one to help in a place called Lodebar was all there was. A place to wallow, a place to share in everyone else's pain, a place you wouldn't be judged, a place called Lodebar, a place that no one wants to enter, that no one wants to help us out of, a place that is overlooked, shunned off, and ignored. Nobody wants to go to the ghetto unless it's to get some drugs. Nobody wants to go to the homeless shelter unless it's to make themselves feel better, doing their little part to help out. Nobody wants to go out to the poverty-stricken country areas unless it's to buy some vegetables on the side of the road. Nobody comes to Lodebar. It's like that person who asks you how you are doing. And when you start to tell them about your troubles, they tune you out and walk away. They aren't concerned about how you feel or what you're going through because most people just don't care. But I heard Yeshua say in Matthew 11, verse 28, "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and lean or learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light." You can cast all your cares upon Yeshua because he cares for you. Know that Yeshua is able to pick you up from where you are and set you high upon a solid rock. In Proverbs 3, verse 5, "Trust in Yahweh with all thy heart, and lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Be not wise in thy own eyes. Fear Yahweh, and depart from evil." Joseph knew what it was like to go from the pit to the palace, from the palace to prison, from prison to the castle. The children of Israel knew what it was like to go from bondage of slavery to the splendor of the promised land. But most people would rather stay where they have become comfortable, in a place called Lodebar. Lodebar doesn't always inhabit just the poor. It is not always a physical place, because there are many people who are disenfranchised right in the center of middle and upper class USA. More than that, we might think people are messed up on the inside and looking like everything is all right on the surface, and the one sitting next to you just might fit that mold. Ask your neighbor, are they all right today? Because you see, somebody might have been abused as a child or molested. Somebody might be battling homosexuality, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, adultery, acute depression, something that has affected the mind, something that has caused them to not sleep at night, something that has crippled them from being who Yahweh intended them to be, something that keeps them miserable, unhappy, frustrated, always moody, full of anger, jealousy, something that has them living in a psychological prison that seems to have no way of escape. They can't talk to you about it because they are ashamed or embarrassed or worried that you might not understand and talk about them. People like to put each other down as if everybody in the congregation is perfect. It's supposed to be perfect, whereas the congregation is supposed to be the hospital where people come to get fixed up, not beat up. Have you ever realized that you have probably sat next to somebody that got beat up before they came to the services? Somebody that is afraid of their own child when they go home? Somebody that can't get over being abused as a child, or someone that is abusing their child, or someone that is on Paxil or Ritalin or whatever drug. Don't you know that the congregation is full of people from a place called Lodebar, living in Lodebar? 1 Corinthians 1 verse 27. But Yahweh has chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. Yahweh has chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty, and base things of the world, and things which are despised has Yahweh chosen. Yes, and things which are not, to bring to naught things that are, that no flesh should glory in his presence. But of him are you in Messiah Yeshua, who of Yahweh is made unto us wisdom, and righteousness, and sanctification, and redemption. That according as it is written, he that glories, let him glory in the Master. We are afraid. People are afraid to come up out of Lodebar and afraid to ask for some help. People are worried that they will get put down, they will get talked about or insulted. Fear, more than anything else, keeps us down. Isn't it strange what we are afraid of? I mean, we fear rejection. We fear failure. We fear other people. But we don't fear Yahweh. Even though Yeshua said in Matthew 10, verse 28, and fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both your soul and body. We will hide our faith so we don't offend people. Steal because we are too ashamed to ask. We'll lie to save embarrassment. Well, King David says, don't be afraid. You see, in those days, it was customary and necessary that when one king was overthrown, his entire family was killed off to keep from a future uprising. Now, Mephibosheth had been hiding out for who knows how long, and he was discovered and thought it was time to die. But to his dismay, he was being offered a place at the king's table. A new home, new land, a new life. Sounds familiar? It should, because that's what we've been offered. But he didn't think he deserved what he was being offered. Why a dead dog like me? Mephibosheth replied to the king's offer was just like most people. Why? Why somebody like me? I'm nothing. I come from nothing. At least that's what they have been telling me all my life. I would never amount to nothing. I'm crippled. I can't work. Can't even take care of myself, let alone somebody else. Nobody has ever cared about me. Most people don't even know I exist. Why do you want to do anything for somebody like me, a dead dog? And truth be told, none of us deserves what Yahweh has given us or anything that he wants to give us. We should have died a long time ago. Car crash, drugs, crime, illnesses, whatever. But what we need to know today is that the king, and not David, Yeshua wants to bring everybody up out of the place called Lodebar and have us eating at his table. He wants to heal the broken, lift up the downtrodden, set free the addict, give hope to the hopeless, give joy to the joyless, give life to the lifeless. Elevate the depressed. Build up the one with no confidence. Open doors for the jobless. Provide shelter for the shelterless. Be a husband to the one who has no man, a wife to one who has no woman. He wants everybody to come up out of whatever it is holding them down and walk in the newness of life that can only come through Him. Come with all your dysfunctions and disabilities and inadequacies, heartaches, burdens, and pains, and He will bear them all. In Romans chapter 5, verse 6, for when we were yet without strength, in due time Messiah died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die. Yet, peradventure, for a good man, some would even dare to die. But Yahweh commandeth His love towards us in that, while we were yet sinners, Messiah died for us. Much more then, being now justified by His blood, we shall be saved from wrath through Him. For if, when we were enemies, we were reconciled to Yahweh by the death of His Son, much more being reconciled, we shall be saved by His life. You may feel like you don't have the strength and the courage, but in Isaiah 40, verse 29, He gives power to the faint, and to them that have no might He increases strength. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon Yahweh shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Don't you know that there is a balm in Gilead that can soothe your hurting soul? His name is Yeshua. Yeshua, the King of Kings and Master of Masters. He wants to restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. He will enable you to go into the enemy's camp and take back what he stole from you. Yahweh has said, forget the former things. Do not dwell in the past. See, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland. Revelation 21, verse 4, and Yahweh shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. And there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. In Revelation 21, verse 5, and He that sat upon the throne said, behold, I make all things new. And He said unto me, write, for these words are true and faithful. Isaiah 65, verse 16. That he who blesses himself in the earth shall bless himself in the Elohim of truth. And he that swears on the earth shall swear by the Elohim of truth. Because the former troubles are forgotten, and because they are hid from my eyes. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered, nor come into mind. And He has made a way for you if you are willing to accept what Yeshua has already done for you. Isaiah 53, verse 5. But He was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon Him, and with His stripes we are healed. Yeshua proclaimed in Luke 4, verse 17. And there was delivered unto Him the book of the prophet Isaiah, and when He had opened the book, He found the place where it was written, which happened to be Isaiah 61, verse 1 and 2. The Spirit of Yahweh is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of Yahweh. Yeshua's ministry was about bringing people out of a place called Lodebar. It was about healing. It was about setting free. It was about giving sight and opening doors and lifting up, and regardless of who they were, regardless of where they have been, regardless of their race, regardless of what they have been told, regardless of how much they have done wrong, regardless of any stipulation that society would consider hopeless and helpless, Yeshua said, "Come unto me." Matthew 11:28. "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." In Acts 2:38. Then Peter said unto them, "Repent, and be baptized every one of you in the name of Yeshua Messiah for the remissions of sin, and you shall receive the gift of the Holy Spirit." In Acts 2 verse 39, "For the promise is unto you, and unto your children, and to all that are far off, even as many as Yahweh our Elohim shall call." Yahweh bless.